I didn't notice the silence at first. It was just a quieter house than usual, the kind that feels earned after a long week. Then my daughter asked where her cello was. She was 11, still small enough that the instrument looked oversized when she carried it, but she treated it with a seriousness that surprised people. It had been my grandmother's, an antique, darkened with age, its varnish worn thin where hands had rested for decades. Grandma had given it to her 2 years earlier, not ceremonially, just one afternoon with a simple, "It should stay in the family." The music room was empty, except for the outline on the floor where the stand used to be, a pale rectangle of unfaded wood. I told my daughter it was probably being cleaned or repaired. I heard how thin that sounded even as I said it. My parents didn't call me. I called them. They spoke quickly, overlapping as if speed could turn explanation into justification. The cello had been valuable. They had connections. It was just sitting there. My sister's kids needed a pool, exercise, joy, memories. This was for the family. They said the number like it would anchor the argument. $87,000. I asked why they hadn't asked me. There was a pause. Then my father said gently, "We didn't think you'd understand." That was when the old feeling came back, the one where my role in the family narrowed into something small and flexible, something that could be moved around if it made things easier for everyone else. I didn't shout, I didn't cry. I told them I needed time and hung up. My daughter practiced that night on a borrowed student cello from her school. It sounded fine technically, but she kept stopping, frowning, adjusting her fingers like something essential wasn't lining up. For 2 days, I didn't tell my grandmother. She was 90, sharp-minded, but physically frail. I told myself I was protecting her. In truth, I was protecting the last illusion I had about my parents. When I finally drove her over, I rehearsed the conversation the whole way. I expected anger. I expected grief. I expected to have to hold her hand while she mourned a piece of her past. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she didn't speak for a long moment. Then she smiled. Not kindly, not cruelly, just knowingly. "The cello was never a gift," she said. "Not in the way they thought." My parents' faces changed before she explained anything. They went pale as if they'd heard a sound I hadn't yet. She told us about my grandfather, about how the cello had been purchased jointly with another musician in the family, about the trust that had been quietly set up years ago. The instrument had been placed with us, yes, but ownership had remained elsewhere. There had been conditions. There was paperwork. "I let them assume," she said calmly. "I wanted to see what they do with it." No one spoke. The room felt suddenly smaller, like the walls had edged closer. She asked me to hand her the folder from her bag. Inside were copies of documents, yellowed but precise. She dialed a number I didn't recognize, and spoke briefly, efficiently. A lawyer, not angry, just clear. The authority arrived without drama, a formal notice, a timeline. The sale was invalid. The money was subject to recovery. The pool, already half-built, was now something else entirely, a liability. My parents tried to explain themselves again, but the words didn't land this time. There was nothing left to persuade. The process had started, and it didn't care about intentions. In the weeks that followed, the money was clawed back through channels I didn't fully understand. The cello gone to a private collector overseas could not be returned. That loss sat heavy. No one pretended otherwise. My sister stopped calling me. My parents spoke less, and when they did, their voices were careful, as if unsure where the ground now was. My grandmother didn't gloat. She didn't even mention it again. She spent her energy with my daughter instead, listening to her play, correcting her posture, telling stories about the music rather than the object that made it. Eventually, the trust paid for a new instrument. Not the same, nothing like it, but chosen carefully, legally, undeniably hers. The family never went back to how it was. Something collapsed quietly without shouting or slammed doors. What replaced it was thinner, more honest, and a little sad. One evening, months later, I stood in the hallway and listened to my daughter practice. The notes were tentative, then steadier, not perfect, real. I thought about what had been taken and what had been revealed instead. Some legacies are objects, others are boundaries. This one finally was clear.